And Arkansas GOP Senator Tom Cotton to react this morning. Senator, thanks so much for being here. You heard Griff's report, and I presume you may have also heard Nancy Pelosi on the Sunday shows yesterday on ABC. Well, she had some new talking points. Here's the talking point of the left about the border right now, Senator.
This is a humanitarian challenge to all of us. What the administration has inherited is a broken system at the border, and they are working to correct that in the children's interest. I'm so pleased that the president, as a temporary measure, has sent FEMA to the border in order to help facilitate the children going from one 72-hour issue into where they are cared for as they are transferred into family homes or homes that are safe for them to be. So this, again, is a transition for what was wrong before to what is right. There are many reasons that go into this, but the fact is we have to deal with it at the border.
Senator, she was not the only one singing the same tune yesterday. Inheriting a broken system is what they say.
Yeah, Pete, at no point in that rambling, incoherent answer did Nancy Pelosi even come close to expressing a rational thought about what's happening at the border. What they inherited from the Trump administration was a border that was closed. We were building a wall, and we were turning away all migrants who had no right to cross into our country. The Biden border crisis, though, was created by Joe Biden's promises of amnesty and open borders and free health care for illegals during the campaign. That's why border crossings have increased every month since the election. And now the Biden administration is sending FEMA to the border. They are, by their own declaration, admitting it's a disaster. That's what it is when you deploy FEMA, a disaster. But remember, they're not deploying FEMA to secure the border, to try to finish the wall, or to stop those migrants from crossing. They're deploying FEMA to expedite them, to wave them in even faster and give them a bus ticket and a plane ticket and send them wherever they want to go in the United States. That is the Biden border crisis.
Let's talk about what's happening in Washington, because we've seen the fences around the Capitol after the insurrection, and now the National Guard. They were supposed to be there for just a little while, then they extended it for, indefinitely now, even though we're being told there aren't any threats. But this is what the National Guard Association chairman and Arizona Adjunct General, Major General Michael McGuire, said to the Washington Examiner. He said this enduring requirement of having them around the city, I think it's completely inappropriate at best, illegal at worst. Every American citizen should be concerned that an unelected cabinet secretary can move forces into the city. The National Guard specifically is the last line of defense for direct policing action, only in the emergent period when it is life, limb protection of property. What's your reaction to that? How long will they be there? Some of these states have actually pulled their guys, and they're women too, guys and women. Florida, Texas are two examples. They said, we're not keeping our people there anymore. They're coming home.
Yeah, Ainsley, the contrast is remarkable. The Biden administration stopped building a wall on our southern border, and they put up fences around our capital. So I guess walls don't work if it's defending American sovereignty, but walls and fences work just fine when it's protecting Democratic politicians. The contrast couldn't be starker. But General Hansen is right. There is no demonstrated need for that fencing and those National Guard troops to remain at the Capitol. I've repeatedly asked the Capitol Hill security leaders, what is the specific incredible threat to the Capitol complex that requires these extraordinary steps? They say there is no specific incredible threat. They cite general, vague concerns, and now they continue to cite the prospect that Joe Biden will be addressing a joint session of Congress. Look, if we keep thousands of National Guard troops and a fence around the Capitol until Joe Biden is finally ready to speak in public, they may be there for a very long time.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. They are cutting some of the fencing and some of the troops, but not enough. So disappointing to see a former General Secretary of Defense Austin know this and go along with this, and along with saying that on top of that, Admiral Kirby has to spout this stuff at the State Department, and he absolutely knows better, it would seem. Let's talk about another nominee. You grilled Vanita Gupta on her past comments, which, by the way, some of these nominees should realize if they want to get back into government, they should probably tweet with a little bit of control. Here's some of the give and take.
You said we all have implicit biases and racial biases. That's all. Every single American you accused of implicit bias and racial bias. So I'm asking you again, against which races do you harbor racial bias?
I am quite aware that I know that I hold stereotypes that I have to manage. I'm a product of my culture. I believe that all of us are able to manage implicit bias, but only if we can acknowledge our own. And I am not above anyone else in that matter. I think implicit bias is something that is part of the shared human condition.
What'd you learn from that, Senator?
I learned that the emperor has no clothes and all these claims that America is a terrible, horrible, racist nation. But look, all of you and all of your viewers know this. Whether your kids hear it at school or you hear it from a politically correct HR manager at your corporate employer or anywhere else, all these vague and casually tossed around claims of racism. But when I asked her very simply, against which races do you hold racial bias? Obviously, she got tongue-tied. She couldn't answer the question. It just goes to expose what a foolish claim it is to slander our entire nation, to say that every single person has racial biases, as opposed to saying America is a great nation and Americans are a good people. This is a radical trust fund liberal nominee who will use the laws of the United States to advance her far left agenda. That's why she faces such opposition on her committee and in the Senate as a whole. This is not the kind of person that Americans expect to be enforcing our laws.
It's unbelievable. And Senator, I just got to ask you about China. You were the first one to come out and talk about the Wuhan virus, that it might have been come from that lab, and everyone said, how dare you say that? It could have been on purpose. It could have been a mistake. And it turns out the WHO never got to the bottom of it, but more and more people are pointing that direction. The Biden administration is going to have meetings with Chinese officials in Alaska, and they already met with the Quad virtually. Now they're going to go with the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State together. Do you think on some level the Biden administration understands the China threat? And can you unwind their approach to this?
I hope so, Brian. It hasn't been clearly demonstrated yet, though. I hope that in those meetings that the American delegation raises the very critical issues of Taiwan's autonomy and peaceable relations across the Taiwanese Strait, and about China's brutal repression of religious and ethnic minorities inside of its own territory, as well as its crackdown on Hong Kong's autonomy. Remember, China had promised that Hong Kong would be an independent, autonomous land for 50 years, and barely half the way into that 50-year period, they violated those commitments. It's just another example of how you cannot trust the Chinese Communist Party to uphold its commitments.
Why are they not writing the world a check? They're the first economy to recover. They've gotten rid of all their stimulus, and we're the ones paying the price.
And how do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just the United States. Look at what's happening in Europe, which is still suffering from elevated cases of the virus. The world should be holding China accountable for its malevolence, and most likely in this case, its negligence as well, since, as you say, all the evidence still points towards an accidental breach of those labs in Wuhan. China is still covering that up.
And the WHO, who's totally in their pocket. Senator Tom Cotton, in a hat tip to your Happy Gilmore reference, I award you no points. But you did a wonderful job.
And may God have mercy on all your souls.
On your soul.
All right, Senator, thank you
very much.
All right, let's hand it over.